Hi everybody, good morning. This is Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelove Quilts for You. I'm sitting at my computer again. I'm not sewing right now. I'm just looking at my gifted quilts. As you know, the last several videos I've made in the last few weeks, I was going over the quilts that I have gifted to people, and I didn't realize that I had so many pictures, not of the perhaps actual recipients who've received them, because as you know, I'm repeating myself, I just wrap something up and I gift it and I give it away, and I forgot many years ago, this is up until about 5 years ago, I forgot to take pictures. It was really before cell phones were around, quite a long time ago. I have a few pictures. The first one I wanted to share with you was, let me see, Parker is now in 5th grade. How old is he? My friend Jen was pregnant with her 3rd child, Parker, and they didn't know if it was a boy or girl. So back then, the gender reveals were quite a sort of a new thing. So I was the one who found out about the gender of the child, which was a little boy, and we made a big game about it. People had to guess the names that they had, boy or girl, and beforehand I had made a quilt, a blue quilt. Back then it was blue, now it's all tan. tan, beige everywhere. But back then it was blue and pink. I had actually made a blue quilt and a pink quilt. And later on, Jen took the pink quilt because I'm like, this was supposed to be for your girl if you had had a girl. So she's like, oh, can I have it? So I'm like, yeah, take it. So I made Parker, I made a blue quilt and then a little pillow that says Parker. And then people were trying to guess the names, and no one came up with the name Parker. But then they opened up the present, as it were, the gift, and they opened up the tissue, and there Jen and Ben and all of the family were like, oh, the boy's name was Parker. It was a little boy. That was the gender reveal. So this is the picture that I have of Jen and I didn't get a picture of the quilt. It was cute. I think it was like birds on a wire quilt. That was a real sweet little quilt. Oh, years ago, I don't know, again, 12 years ago, I had seen a book in a quilt shop for baby quilts, and on the front cover of the magazine or the book, it had a really pretty quilt that I was just drawn to, baby quilt, with a little, again, I like little sort of half circles. And so I bought the book, and here's the book. I have a picture of the book for whatever reason, and then I made the quilt. I made this quilt twice, and I don't have a picture of the blue one I gave away, but I made I made a pink one for a little girl in our congregation, and I wrapped it up and gave it to her. Again, didn't take a picture, but her mom sent me a picture of the quilt and her little baby on the quilt. You can't really tell. That's the backing of the quilt, that this pink and white pattern. I really like that pattern. In fact, I made it a couple times. I made it as a smaller, or without the borders, I forget, as a table topper for somebody. And my brother-in-law bought that as a present to give to as a hostess gift. That quilt pattern. I like that. That was a mutual friend of our daughters, Malia's, and us, Colette. She was graduating, many years ago, and I made her another Asian-looking quilt, and then I fleshed that panel out, that Asian Oriental panel, with French braids. That made up really pretty. That's this quilt here. Because I knew she liked those dark, rich colors. So that was Colette's quilt I made for her graduation. She was really pleased with that. I had made our grandson, Jackson, who is now 15 years old, a whole set, again, a whole set of blue and quilt and everything. I don't have a picture of them, or I have somewhere, but I did find a picture of the diaper sorter that they had in their nursery, and that again was when I had my embroidery machine going, Jackson Ian, and I made this lovely diaper, or in England we call it the nappy holder. That was really sweet, and that was the fabric that matched all of the crib bedding and everything, and his little baby blanket. That was, I think I've shown you this quilt before. Now, what I had done is I had a bunch of lace and a bunch of doilies, and some of them were old and some of them were new that you can get at a craft store, and I just wanted to make a very low volume quilt, and so I did. It turned out really pretty. It was like all tans, creams, beiges. It was really pretty. Well, in a local town, there was a craft show that I was asked to be in. So I did the whole tent, the whole stall and everything. And I had that quilt for sale. Now, mostly I had made some table runners and some placemats and some inexpensive things. I didn't really expect my quilt to sell because it was expensive. The day of the quilt show, the second day of the craft show, along comes my dear friend Colette, really a sweet person, and she just loved the quilt, and I was so tempted to just like give her the quilt, but she was so very good and so very kind. She's, I'm absolutely paying for it. So I would have gifted it to her after the show, but I'm like, hey, you can write me a check. So Colette bought my quilt, but she said, absolutely not. You're in a stall. She's a businesswoman, and she says you're wanting to make money, and I'm like, oh, thank you so much. So she actually bought my quilt, but as I said, I probably would have gifted it to her because she really did love it. She really loved it. She decorates very low volume, you know, creams and beiges, and a lot of quilts. As artistic people, we go wild with colors, and I understand that people's decor perhaps doesn't match a quilt, and they're not like into quilty people, as I've said before. So there's a lot of movement towards lower volume or a little bit more modern quilting with lots of white or cream, more negative space, as opposed to like the cacophony of colors that we, perhaps my age, like, and all of the beautiful colors. But whatever floats your boat. I like color. We have a sweet older friend, Janet. She's just so lovely. She lives a little bit of away from here. We don't see her all that often, but I know that Janet is extreme fan of Disney. They go to Disney all the time, and I didn't know her all that well to really think about making a quilt for her. So I asked her daughter-in-law, I said, who was a very good friend, I said, I know Janet's a mad Disney person. I said, what's her favorite colors? She was redecorating a bedroom, actually, in like teals. So I had gotten some pretty panels of just florals and whatnot, and made this quilt for her. But I actually, as you can see, I'll try to enlarge the quilt. This is Janet admiring her quilt, and she did cry. It was very sweet because it came out of the blue from Ian and I went over to her house. I made the Mickey Mouse ears, the Mickey Mouse silhouette as the border all the way around the quilt in the teal, and she was just overwhelmed. That was really sweet because I thought, well, I don't really know her, and you can't sell Mickey Mouse things because of the copyright thing, whatever. So I made my own, and I'm like, well, this is okay. Granddaughter Haley's other grandmother, Mimi, she had a vintage sheet of a Little Mermaid and a vintage sheet set, and they were Disney mad. So she had asked me if I would help her make a dress out of this vintage sheet for Haley to grow into. Actually, it was a little bit big. So I had this idea of this, like, not a princess, but like really full with tons and tons of petticoats. So we made the dress at our old house, at our old family home, really full, and then there was tons and tons of petticoats underneath it that she wore separately. So this is the little dress made out of a vintage sheet. So if you're at a thrift store, actually they're very hard to come by now, vintage Disney sheets, because they're very sought after. They're beautiful cotton, but this is what I made. I embellished it with the teal, and it was just so lovely. Again, I don't have a picture of it on her, but it was just so beautiful. So if you've been watching my videos, you will know that, oh, again, back in my other house, about 6-7 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that, I was working with a quilt ruler where you free motion quilt using this ruler, and I was using a clamshell. Never again. I mean, more power to you guys who can use these quilting rulers with a special free motion quilting foot. They have a groove, and you can make the design, any design, with holding the ruler, and I had a hard time doing it. But once I started this on my quilt I had made, I was committed. I had to do these clamshells, this whole thing. I think I have a video on that. I was so fed up with it. I liked the quilt like a square and a square, no pattern. I just made that up. But it was a big quilt, and I was struggling with that for a long time. Well, our son, Niles, number 9 son, came along, and Niles was like, oh, I love that quilt. I'm like, you can have it. I said, you better appreciate this quilt, because it really took me a long time. It was an act of sacrifice and love, because I didn't enjoy making it. But I said, if you love it, and so he sent me a little bit later. They sent me a thank you note, he and Allie. But then a little bit later, he's like, he sent me this. He's like, I love my quilt, and I'm like, you better like that quilt. I don't want to see that in your dog bed. No, they wouldn't do that. So that was that quilt. And then for a while there, I don't know what happened. We had a ton of showers and baby showers and wedding showers. And I had seen a card box where you put in your cards so that they're for safekeeping instead of just on a table, because you never know. So I had the idea, or I had seen an idea, it wasn't my idea, of making these pretty card boxes. And you can buy them at the craft store. They're like cardboard boxes that I covered, and then I embellished. And then I glued them together, sort of hollowed out the bottom of the tiers so that the cards, and cut a slot in the top so that the cards could fit in safely and neatly, but very pretty. I made several of them, and here are these. This is what the ones was for a wedding, 2 weddings I believe it was, and then I had 2 for a wedding. I only have a picture of the one for the wedding, and then one for the baby shower. That was really sweet. I enjoyed making them. I think I did share this with you because it was at the house that we just moved from that was flooded. Our daughter, and our number 8 daughter, Malia, our only daughter, she and her husband Justin travel an awfully lot. They have like a travel mobile. It's just a RAV4, I think it is, a Toyota, but they've kitted it out and they go on tons and tons of road trips. Well, I had seen these panels, really, really awesome poster panels. You can get them if you look up poster fabric panels. I don't know if is it a Riley Blake? I'm not quite sure. Anyway, all I did is I bought a couple of panels. Oh no, I bought 4 panels for them, what places they had been. And I just sewed these 4 panels together and then quilted it. And on the back, it was rag denim patchwork looking fabric. It was really good. And they keep that in their car. Malia was so pleased. And then she took it home for Justin, for her husband to see. In their, I think I have a picture of them in their garage. He opened it up and they were going to go put it in their adventure mobile. So that was the quilt. They have been at those places. She really appreciated that. Malia has about 5, 6, maybe more quilts. Every time she comes, I love that quilt, Mom. Oh, this curl in my hair, what's that doing? Oh, this wasn't a quilt that I gifted. This was a quilt that I had seen on Pinterest, so it wasn't my idea, but I didn't have a pattern, I just copied it. This quilt here, and what was it? Eat, play, sleep, and repeat. I thought that was really sweet. Again, I just did the letters on like the vector that you can pull up letters, and I traced them, and then I just transposed them on the black fabric and then with the yellow. So I photographed it with a teddy bear. Anyway, it was a very plain but very striking little baby quilt, and that sold, and I got a really, really nice review, and then a handwritten thank you note for that for her granddaughter. She really loved that quilt. That was a sweet one. I should make that again, because you can put any name, any word, any saying that you want on a quilt like that. Plain piece of fabric, and then just embellish it with the letters and then a little bit of border. That was a fun quilt to make. I enjoyed making that. Again, it's a real blast from the past to look back on the pictures that I have. So many quilts that I made. As I was saying, I was quite prolific. Oh my goodness. Now I can hardly get out of bed. But it's so lovely gifting a quilt. I really enjoy it. And the people who've appreciated our work, it's just such a lovely feeling when you see your quilt years later, actually, It's really, really nice. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video, folks. Have a lovely day, and take care, everybody, and love from the Trueloves. Bye-bye.